So in this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the charts and what I'm looking at right now in terms of levels, invalidations, and potential targets. Bitcoin just had the highest weekly close ever. It is trading at $122,000 for one Bitcoin. This is nuts. It is ripping past its all-time high. Ethereum just had a weekly close back above its 50-week moving average. It's above $3,000. And right now, the picture is looking like we are going to get an altcoin season and potentially a massive blow off top for the next 2 to 3 months. Before we start, 2 quick announcements. Number 1, there is about 2 weeks left to join my VIP. The link is in the description down below. I am closing the doors July 28th. If you want to join before then, 60-day money back guarantee. You get access to my Discord, my real-time setups. Everything is there, link in description. And point number 2, if you need a place to trade, BLOFIN Exchange is where I personally trade. There's a link down below. If you create an account through my link and trade there, I do lots of bonus campaigns for my referrals, iPhone giveaways. We actually have a campaign running right now for whales where we can get up to 63,000 USDT in cashback on trading volume. All the details are down below. Alright, so this is the weekly chart of Bitcoin. You can see here we had the highest weekly close ever in the history of Bitcoin, and we are now extending pretty far away from the 50-week moving average, which by itself is always something to keep an eye on because it is like a rubber band. It can only stretch so far away from the moving average, so it can only deviate so far away from the mean before it reverts back to the mean. The further it goes away, the harder the snapback is. You can see that every single time. Even 2017, it deviates, snaps back, deviates, snaps back. All the time. It can only pull so far away from the 50-week moving average. And so far, as you can clearly see, we are now approaching points where we're pulling pretty far away from that 50-week moving average. On top of that, we also obviously still have all these bearish RSI divergences. Even right now, with this massive pump to new all-time highs, you can see there is still no confirmation. In fact, the RSI on the weekly is still making a lower high. This is what can happen. This has been a warning for a while, but obviously, due to it being a weekly time frame, this can play out a lot longer. And indeed, what we're starting to see is something that is typical in price action. It is like these 3 thrusts with a bearish 3 thrust divergence. This is something that happens quite often on all sorts of time frames, and typically, once again, it is not really a bullish thing. It is a sign of distribution more often than not, with a pullback or a potential complete reversal imminent. Now, what we see often with RSI divergences on their own, they are not the ultimate like indicator. If you see an RSI divergence, it doesn't mean you should act on it and take a position based purely on that. But it can be a helpful guide where it helps you understand that what is happening now is probably not sustainable. In the same way, sometimes you only see 2 thrusts as an RSI divergence, as you can see over here, and sometimes it's 3. And at this point, we have 3 taps on the RSI making lower highs. So again, it is interesting, it is exciting. $122,000 per Bitcoin. Recently, we saw the fear and greed meter hit extreme greed. Now, obviously, during euphoria and the complete final phases of a bull cycle, we will see that meter hit the extreme greed, and it probably can go even higher into that extreme greed and stay there for quite a while. But this is, in my opinion, the final phase of this crypto bull market. And if you look at previous cycles, I'll overlay this on the video right now, is that we have now 100 days left until we hit the same point in time past the halving where every previous cycle has maximum peaked, right? There has not been a cycle in history of Bitcoin in the last 16 years where a bull cycle has gone on longer than 550 days past the halving. We are now at 450 days, which means that we potentially, like assuming that this cycle is not going to be any different, we have about 100 days. Mid-October is that point. So it is still possible that everyone gets euphoric, that the money starts flooding in, that things go crazy, nothing bad happens, we don't get war, we don't get a black swan, we don't get any conflict, and things just have a blow-off towards the end of the cycle like previous cycles have done. It wasn't looking that way, But right now we have to look at the charts, and things are looking like that is completely a possibility. The next 3 months could be about to get nuts. And even if Bitcoin kind of stalls out, I don't know where it's going to stall out. It could be 120, 130, 150, who knows? But we are starting to see some real movement in altcoins now. So let me move over to the Ethereum chart. And what we can see here, you can see Ethereum is back over $3,000, which is nice to see because not too long ago it was literally half that. It was 1,500 in April. That's just less than 3 months ago. And now we're double that. So I do think that we have now reclaimed here the 50-week moving average with a weekly close above it, which is technically bullish. Okay, that's just how it works. If you look at over here, we reclaimed it. And while we did get a retest again afterwards, that was the run we were looking for. As long as the price is above the 50-week moving average, it's technically bullish. It's a really simple way to decide for yourself, is this price action bearish or bullish? Look at the weekly chart, add the 50 simple moving average, and if it's above there, especially if it comes from below and it reclaims, it's the easiest way to decide, okay, well now the trend in the short term is now bullish until, and this is the invalidation because it's always if then. So now the likelihood of us continuing higher has increased, and that gets invalidated when we get a new weekly close back below the 50-week moving average. So a new weekly close below 2,600 would invalidate the bull trend. But now that we have reclaimed it, the target, in my opinion, is at least these equal highs here at about 4,000 and potentially a run to the all-time highs. You can see if we look previously on Ethereum, what has happened, it can move thousands of dollars in a matter of several weeks. It's easy to see. You can see over here, even from this level, you can see it's done this before last cycle. So it is completely possible for us to see some sort of massive pump in altcoins, assuming that this is the blow off top in the end phase of the cycle, where we can see Ethereum run to maybe over $5,000 before mid-October. It is a possibility here. I would say it's probably a high probability that we are going to take out these equal highs over here at 4,000 at least, and then we have to wait and see. So that means in terms of strategy, how can you play this? Well, besides spot, where there's obviously no liquidation risk, if you are someone who trades with leverage or trades on futures, again, BLOFIN is a great place to trade. Link down below. What you could do here is you could look for longs on retests of this 50-week moving average if we get it. Okay, so we've had quite a pump. The week is just closed, and typically what we see is we do get a flush down from time to time because there's so many people who are betting with leverage, like high leverage, chasing this price up, waiting for that massive breakout to the upside. And sometimes, actually more often than not, we do get a quick drop, 5-10% drop, like pullback, and then continuation higher, just to get rid of those high leverage, just to liquidate them and don't give them the satisfaction of having a perfect entry and chasing it and getting away with long in the top on high leverage. So that means on shorter time frames, for example, with Ethereum, we could look for longs if we get a pullback anywhere to about 2650. I don't know if we're going to go that low, to be honest. Maybe we only go to 2800 or something like that. But that would be the idea. We look for longs, potentially something like this, and we have the stop like somewhere there, and we are targeting maybe all-time highs. If we're targeting all-time highs, even a setup like this is a 1 to 6 risk reward. It is pretty nice, and that's a decently wide stop. I mean, you're looking at an entry here of potentially 2800 with a stop around maybe 2450. So that's a pretty decently wide stop where it's going to take quite a pullback to get stopped out on that. But if it does run up to, say, for example, $5,000, we are looking at a very nice risk reward, and this makes, in my opinion, a good setup because also this stop loss would then be below the 50-week moving average, which is our invalidation. In theory, I do think there is quite a decent chance that we do get some sort of pullback here, but we probably don't want to see it go back below the 50-week moving average, which makes the setup good on all criteria. Then if we're starting to look at altcoins, a lot of them are close, not quite there yet in terms of reclaiming their 50-week moving average. And like I said, this is an important indicator. It makes it very simple. It's the easiest thing you do. You put it on a weekly chart, go through all your altcoins in this way, add the 50 simple moving average, and then you can set alerts when it reclaims. Look here what happened when it reclaimed. Okay? reclaim, and we get the pump. Reclaim, we get the pump. And reclaim, which is about to happen, so not this week, maybe after this week. So in a week from now, if we get a close above the 50-week moving average on Doge, we can potentially start thinking about targeting the cycle highs, or maybe even beyond that, which would mean that you could try and front run it now if you want to take a long, but again, that could be a bit risky because it could still pull back, so we don't really know. But assuming that we get a close above this 50-week moving average next week, something like this with a target here or higher, maybe things go nuts. Maybe we do get an alt season where everything goes crazy, and maybe Doge does make a crazy pump to like $1. I mean, if you're looking at this, the potential upside here for the risk reward, 1 to 7 if you're doing something like this. And again, you're not going to take that on insanely higher leverage because you can't, because the stop is too wide. But you could take a 2x or a 3x long on this. It would be fine in terms of the stop. It would be able to tolerate that. You risk whatever you're willing to risk on one single trade. So if your stop gets hit, you know what you're risking. Typically, that's 1 or 2% if you're playing conservatively. If you're taking higher risks, maybe 5 to 10%. But you're not going all in with 100x leverage on an altcoin. You're just not doing that unless you want to risk like $100 or something. Fine, But you're not doing that with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But something like this potentially makes a lot more sense, especially if we get that reclaim above the 50-week moving average. Now here's another example, PEPE, and specifically this one because it has already reclaimed its 50-week moving average. So this is what I'm talking about. You want to run through all the altcoins on your watch list, okay? Take some time off. This is important. This is probably, if we're going to get an alt season, okay, the only time will tell, but let's say we are going to get an altcoin season and a final blow off top. This happens once every 4 years. So the important or most important thing, if you trade, if you do anything with crypto, this is the time you've been waiting for. So everything else should probably take a backseat. Any Netflix, any other stuff that's non-essential, do that in 3 months from now. Spend your time with the charts. The opportunities are here right now. If this holds and this does continue higher, which I think it's looking pretty decent, this is the time that there's the most amount of money to be made. The moves will be the quickest, and the opportunities are there. And after that, if the cycle is over, we're going into bear market, and it's going to get very miserable and boring for most people. Obviously, you can short it and make money to the downside, but in general, the overall vibe deteriorates a lot in bear markets. Everyone's grumpy, a lot of people lose money, etc. Okay, so now is the time to pay attention. Look at, for example, PEPE has now reclaimed. It's got a weekly close above, which means that we could potentially be looking here at a run back to the all-time highs on PEPE. So if we're looking for a setup over here on PEPE, again, the strategy that I like to follow is a reclaim of the 50 gives you a good entry in bull markets, and then a retest of it. So any pullback towards this is probably going to give you some sort of better entry. I would look for a stop. You're probably safer if you put it below here or here, but let's say something like this, even if this runs to the highs, you can see that's a 1 to 5 risk reward. Meaning if you bet $100 or you're willing to risk $100 when you're wrong, you make $500 when you're right, and it runs to TP. So a lot of these charts are starting to shape up, are starting to look good. Like I said, some of them have not yet reclaimed their 50-week moving average, but are very close, and that might just happen in the next week or two. And some already have. So run through all your altcoins. Make a list of which ones are above their 50-week moving average and look for the potential setups. Like I said, this is probably a time that only happens once every 4 years. This is the final phase of the bull market, in my opinion. We have, based on the historic data, maybe 100 days left at most till like mid-October. And if this is all going to pump, if Ethereum is going to rip to new all-time highs in the next 3 months, and altcoins are going to do a 2, 3, 4, 5x, this is the time you want to pay attention, and you want to look for these setups, and you want to spend as much time as possible here because this is when the money is there to be made. And of course, the flip side of this is just as quickly as these gains come, if this is the blow off top, it will retrace just as quickly. So you need to have a plan. You need to have an exit strategy. You need to know when you're going to take your initial out. You need to know when you are going to take profits and completely get out of these markets. Because even if these pumps do happen, we get an altcoin season and everything goes vertical, as soon as the bull market is over, as soon as the liquidity is over, it dumps just as quickly, and altcoins will drop, most of them 70, 80, 90% in the next bear market. So you want to play this right. if we get an altcoin season and you play your cards right, there is huge amounts of money to be made in the next 3 months. And I would say take advantage of that as much as possible. So if you want to join me inside VIP, I'm doing this every single day, sharing charts, sharing trades, sharing all my setups, all my knowledge, my guidance. Come and join. There's 2 weeks left before I'm closing the doors. It's perfect timing for the next 3 months ahead. The link is in the description down below. You get to join me inside my Discord, get access to all my daily market updates, my real-time trade ideas, everything involved with this, literally 7 days per week. You get access to the community. There's more than 3,300 members from all around the world. And there's a 60-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Come and join, ride out the next 2-3 months, and you still have an option if you're not happy to request a refund and get your money back. But the doors close in 2 weeks, July 28th. Link is in the description down below.